Morning, everybody. It is 8:10 a.m., November 13th. Welcome to my channel. Yesterday, you had some tech weakness, but the overall market was not the weakest. However, the top three components of the QQQ, technology, consumer discretionary, communications, were all negative, right? And then financials were strong, healthcare was super strong. So the ES, or the SPY S&P 500, wasn't that weak comparatively, right? So you had this weakness in the Qs, followed by not as much weakness in the S&P 500, right? And the internals weren't that weak, so you kind of had this weird day, I would say. Price action, just looking at the candles, was kind of erratic, right? All I had was a scalp short in the Nasdaq. I was live yesterday, just talking about the markets, pretty much calling the shots as I saw them, and pretty much was accurate as usual about like what's possible in these markets. All right, yesterday was not an easy day to just set up a trade. We drove lower off the open in the Nasdaq and then kind of tried to push lower, but we did hit the anchored VWAP finally from the Friday lows in the QQQ, or the Nasdaq futures. So that was, you literally bounced off that yesterday, pushed up, bounced off it again in the overnight. So now in the Qs, we're in balance. We have a 3-day balance. We have that inverse head and shoulders, which is a bullish pattern on the daily chart. Kind of setting up in the ES as well, but not as pretty as the QQQ. Now the government has reopened officially. We're still not going to get CPI data. They said that the data are going to be delayed. We have a lot of Fed speak today. Cisco reported earnings after the close yesterday and had blowout earnings, so they're up for AI demand, right? Metal's been pushing this week. That's what's going on. All right. Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile and bond profile to find structure in the markets, along with supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. Okay. Also use Anchor View Hubs, market internals, and Bookmap for my future trades, and my weekly expected move indicator that I run for free via a Python script every weekend or Monday morning, and it gives you the expected range for a lot of important tickers in our markets, right? And basically the gist of it is it gives you the range based on the options market and plots them on your charts. And 70% of the time, the market closes within those ranges. Okay, so if anybody, usually something hits the expected move to the upside or the downside, don't expect much more to go, right? The one now there are outliers like this week, Eli Lilly, bro, it's expected move and it keeps pushing. So if it keeps pushing, then it can keep going. It definitely can keep going. So that's that there. Now, hopefully everybody joins my channel, subscribe, sets that alert. Do this every morning. Hope to give you the real deal of what's going on in the markets, the story, the leaders and the laggards, news, and just the 411 on the markets. All right. Also give you those long and short trade scenarios in the ES and Nasdaq futures. If you want more in-depth coverage, that is going to be my Discord, Confluence Trading. Sign up. What are you waiting for? Okay. There I give you live market updates, my intraday commentary. Yesterday I was live, calling the markets as usual in what's capable based on my internals and just based on my experience of watching internals and what markets usually do. Okay. And what that does for me is doesn't make me overreact to price action. Because if you stare at price action, it can give you emotions when a big green candle or a big red candle or something happens like that. But my job, my job in if I go live, is to just give a snapshot of the next 15 minutes or so. If internals stay the same, what's the market capable of? Not about what a 5 minute candle does, 15-minute candle does. What's the market usually capable of? And I'm super accurate. Okay? Super accurate. So if you see yesterday, if you were live with me, which was there was like 3 or 4 or 5 people in the room with me, and I was talking about the Nasdaq ticks, saying that if you stay under zero that long, pops are going to be sold. Then we had a poor low, which is a market profile term, in the profile, and I said usually if you get a poor low and you go back away from it, so that means shorts at poor location. And it doesn't really matter. I can't really show it to you. Well, yeah, because it got broke, so I can't really show it to you. But that's where I just took a quick short scalp in the Nasdaq futures. So that was a nice trade. And that was the only thing I saw that day where I was like, ooh, this is great, right? And then I just narrated it. So I think my strong suit, okay, if you join my Discord and see me, is use me as an indicator. Use me for your trades. You don't need to trade like me. But if, like I'm saying, hey, I'm telling you right now, we don't have much room to the downside. The internals do not really show that, okay? Or I'm talking about profile or something. I would say there's a good possibility without a catalyst coming out that I'm gonna be spot on the money. And if you, now again, scalper, you can't go with what I say if you're a scalper. I always say that. Good morning, Mark. You can't go and then listen to me and take much advice if you're a scalper. You can if you're a scalper like me, scalping the poor low in the Nasdaq futures yesterday, right? But not if you're scalping ticks and little points. That my advice almost doesn't mean much. Okay, it doesn't really mean much. But you typically would not want to short if you're a longer looking for a longer move. If I'm telling you we don't have much more room, right? So I think you could use me. That's my biggest asset for anybody that's going to watch my Discord. Okay? Because I can literally, most times, like a maestro, say, this is probably not much more room to the downside. We probably bounce from here. This is typically what happens. I'm telling you, I nail it pretty much every day. All right? And unfortunately, sometimes there's not a setup there. And then I can't make money on it, but somebody else might be able to. Right? Everybody personality is different for trading. Right? Somebody might be like, whoa, he just said that that's the bottom. I'm long. Oh, I'm getting paid. But if it's not a setup for me, I can't. Sometimes it just does what I say. Right? But there's not really a setup. So, with that being said, let's just get into futures. So, the bottom line, come join me. I'll be live today. Come join me. Okay? Let's look at this watch list here. Like I said, we're in balance right now. We're in ultimate balance. We'll get into that in a little bit. Big move is going to be coming. Don't know how much we're going to coil, but big move's coming. Ethereum up 2.18. VIX is up 2%. That's interesting. Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just, it's at its anchored VWAP for the year, 200-day moving average. It's just at a area that you're eventually going to do something, but do we go back up or do we go back down? I don't know, right? Crude is at $58 a barrel, 59 pretty much. It just can't. Well, they just had I'm not sure if it was OPEC or EIA, but there's a surplus of inventory, and what does that mean? Price usually goes down. Okay, so crude just can't get out of its way. It will make a move eventually, trust me. Gold's getting more love, up 0.48. 10-year yields up. So the more the 10-year yield drives up, mortgage interest rates will rise. Okay, that's why the mortgage rates have been going back up. Not a lot, but they are going up. Silver up 0.29. The Dow is down 0.17. Dow's, I think, it made an all-time high yesterday. Okay, Nasdaq's down 1.18. Very muted market this morning. ES down 0.20. Dollars down 0.25. 30-year bonds being sold, hence yields rising. The Russell, it's a little more sensitive to yields. That's why it's down 0.47. All right, moving on to the Mag 7 here. Mag 7 Plus, I call it. All right, let's look up Meta. Meta is leading the pack, up 0.54. Coinbase up 0.53, the Bitcoin proxy. Netflix, remember that split's coming. Believe it's November 17th. It has a split 10 to 1. So if you just bought 10 shares of Netflix today, you'll own 100 shares at around $116. Okay? That, I believe, is why that Netflix mostly is getting a pump. And Netflix actually hit its expected move to the upside yesterday. Okay? Odds are we don't go much higher. Okay? Now, Microsoft had a big move yesterday. I was live on my channel. I said that 500 gamma level. 500. Let's see what it does. And it ripped off of 500. Okay? Who's lagging today? Nvidia down 0.72. Google down 0.72. Tesla's down 1%. AMD down 1.33. AMD has also hit its expected move for the week. So we got Eli Lilly hit its expected move. Netflix hit its expected move. AMD. That's about it so far. All right, moving on. Top sectors. The mining is getting love, so NEM up 1%. United Healthcare. Could this be the rise? They got a big move. Push up with healthcare. Who's lagging today? Palantir. Disney reported earnings. Not too good. Down 5.34%. Let's look at the granular list here. Cisco, lights out earnings, up 0.65%. Alibaba up 4.16%. Nike up 2.82%. ON up 1.78%. Lagging. Tilray, that's a weed stock, down 4.88%. Iris Energy down 3.11%. D-Wave down 2.84%. Dollar Tree down 2%. And Western Digital and Oklo down 1.60%. So some of those high flyers a little weak today. They don't move markets though. Okay, they don't move markets. Cisco is definitely heavily weighted in the NextLK sector. Okay, so that's decent. That's a decent move, right? Moving on. Sectors. Crude. Not much of a leader, up 0.13. Now, lagging. This is just technology down 0.17, communications down 0.18, semis down 0.36. Okay, that's not much of a laggard. Generally, that means it's risk off for the market. But generally, sometimes when the SMH semiconductors ETF is down, it usually gets bought up during the day. Okay, and some of these charts I was looking at are just horrible. The way they look, Nvidia's, Amazon's chart looks horrible, looks horrendous. Okay, that's why I'm not surprised what this market's doing. Doesn't surprise me. All right, really, I don't really get surprised. So, all right, let's move on to economic calendar, and there's not much to talk about. Government reopened. I already talked about that. All right, government is officially reopened, but their data is going to be delayed. Today we would have had CPI. We're not going to be getting that. Would have had jobless claims. All right, but we do have Fed Hammock speaking. So that's a Fed. Tomorrow, yeah, we're not going to get core PPI. I don't believe we're going to get any of these yet. All right, they're going to be delayed. They said they might not even get the October CPI at all. All right, so who knows? Let's move on to the juice. See if this Trump, anything for Trump today. We have Fed Speak, Fed Daily, Fed Kashkari. EIA and crude is today at noon. That's a different time. Oh, that's because of Veterans Day. Let's see here. 2 o'clock, Trump signs executive order. So 2 o'clock, I'm hopefully be done for the day. All right. Now, here's what I was talking about. The next U.S. CPI report is delayed despite the end of the government shutdown, and the October 2025 data is unlikely to be released as originally scheduled for November 13th. The BLS will release a new schedule, but the report will likely be delayed at least a week. Okay, there's anything big that happened? Not really. Not really. Okay. Let's move on to some stock news. Let's see if we can get a little list here. If we can't, we move on to the other news. I'm not going to sit here seeing that the Disney hit the cable weakness. Let's see if just want to make sure that I'm not missing it. Michael Burry actually is shutting down his hedge fund. All right, we're moving on here. Let's go to this news here. It says regional Fed banks could be next front in Trump's pressure campaign. Google hit with EU antitrust investigation into its spam policy. Maybe that's why Google's down a little bit, but that usually doesn't mean much in the long term. Cisco shares climb on strong AI-fueled equipment demand. GE Vernova, Siemens Energy in talks to supply gas turbines for Syria reconstruction. Boeing ordered to pay more than $28 million to 737 MAX crash victims' family. Wow. And it's not even affecting Boeing at all. All right. Let's just see if there's anything in here that's worth talking about, because I'm really only going to talk about big stuff. Nope, not really. Let's go to upgrades, downgrades. Let's just see if there's anything here. All right. Is this for the 13th? Yep. All right, let's look at it. AutoZone upgrade, bookings, holdings upgrades, Circle. I saw JP Morgan upgraded this today. Circle. That's it's not even up that much from this. DoorDash, decent amount of upgrades today. Genuine Auto Parts, Kimberly Clark, Nike. There you go, Nike. That's why it's up. Got an upgrade. Downgrades. This list is sometimes poor. Yeah, there you go. There you go. You're never really great with the downgrades. Let's move on. All right, I'm going to start with market internals yesterday. Let's do that market internal recap. That's my bread and butter. Okay. Remember, the market cannot perform internals. The market cannot perform its internals. Okay. My internals are like the larts, the hun, the liver, the kidneys of a human being, right? So this is basically everything right here. All right. So what did we have? We opened up, and the ES was, this is SP 500, this is the FCX, but same thing. So it was holding, right? And then because the QQQ is so heavily weighted, you can see right here is down 0.50 from the open. It was more than that at one point. And I was like, okay, right? Okay. But look at the equal weight, this white line, right? You notice that was stronger than the market cap. That just means that the overall market without weightings was stronger. But our markets move on market cap weight. So these are the powerful bars that show you all the weights. It calculates based on the weights. Okay, that's the beauty of this indicator. And as we're pushing down, I said, all right, we might have another push down, but the overall market was not weak. It just wasn't. Now, when I mean the overall market, meaning the exchange level, NASDAQ exchange, NYSE exchange, even the NASDAQ 100, it was basically in parity. But because these heavyweights, communications, discretionary, and infotech, are a big part of the QQQ. Now, if you talk about infotech, right, that includes your Microsoft, Nvidia, your Apple. Okay? Then you go to consumer discretionary, that's your Amazon, your Tesla, your Home Depot, and communications, that's your Google, your Meta, your Netflix. Okay? So, market's going to have a hard time going up with those weak. But it's also going to have a hard time if the rest of the market is not that weak. And that's why we kind of got this push down. Then you kind of got a double bottom here. And we moved up and then it was crap. All right. That's your market internals. Let's move on to daily charts. And what I'm seeing in daily charts is just, I'll show you a different chart where I really show you, well, in futures we'll see it, but if somebody wants to see it on the SPY, I'll show it to you on the SPY as well. All right, so we're in this big channel. Notice, see that big channel? That's what we've been doing, okay? That's the macro view. Yesterday we were pretty much unchanged. Look, we closed here and we closed here the prior day. Okay, but what are we doing? Higher low, higher low, higher low, higher high, higher high, higher high. Forget about this as a black candle. It really doesn't matter. Okay, because look, we tried to go down and you got kind of a little bit of a hammer, right? So that's what we're doing. All right. But look, remember what I said yesterday? This should slow down because it is consolidation. This should slow down. It did, right? You just had a big picture. This is like a big sprint, 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 and now you need to take a break. And we're just taking a break, right? Remember, the market trends and bases. That's all it does. That's all this market does. Where are we now? 682. Let's call it 682. We're 682. All right, so we're at the lower third yesterday. The lower third. Okay, we're at the lower third. That's the expected move to the upside. We still haven't touched that. 688.37. Right there. You get it. You can get that indicator in my Discord. All right, now let's look at futures. Futures. All right. So this is that inverse head and shoulders I talked about. Now the Q's is a better one, right? But this definitely is it. Look, you got the neckline here around 6,900. Got a little bit of a left shoulder, a little bit of a right shoulder. Actually, let's put this left shoulder. It's a little awkward than your head. Let me change that color. So you could say a left shoulder, right shoulder, the head. I'm just thickening this up a little bit. And then you got your neckline, a 6,900. So boom, Santa Claus can make that happen. We'll see. Santa Claus rally. That's what I'm talking about. So you can see in futures, you got like a 3-day balance happening here in the ES. 3-day balance. Look at that. Doji candle yesterday, right? It's just imbalanced. Look, we're above the 20, above the 9 EMA daily. Really nothing to see here right now. Okay, I feel like we're going to range today unless there's some catalyst. Now, see how we officially opened the government and what? You think we would be gapped up, right? It was already priced in. All right, so that's how it works. Qs. Let's look at our Qs. This is the head and shoulders that I'm really talking about here. I mean, the inverse, right? So if we really, this is what I'm loving here. So you got the left shoulder, the right shoulder, the head, and the neckline around 625, 626. This is setting up. Notice how 1 day of support on a 20-day simple moving average, 2 days of support on a 20-day simple moving average, 3 support at the 20-day simple moving average. Okay, each one of them has a higher low, incremental, right? Because tech has been relatively weak. 2 days. Okay, 2 days. Now, where are we at today? 619. Right here. Right around that 20-day simple moving average. Do we break this? I don't know. We have a gap below us and a gap above us. Okay, gap above and gap below. Let's look at the NASDAQ futures. Okay, here's NASDAQ futures. You can see we're in 3-day balance right here. Okay, and look at that. The 9 EMA and the 20 are crossing each other. It just means we're balanced. Okay, that's all that means. We're balanced. And the level to break is around the 25827, so around there. You break that, I feel like we can at least make it up to here. 260s at least. Okay. Does the market need to pull back a little farther? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it needs to sweep these two lows like this, and then you get the fuel to go higher. Maybe. Right? I don't know. We do have a little bit of a trend line here, so if we just put a little trend line here. I have this in futures too, but just do it like that. Look. Let's make this a little better. If you just want to do it, Peter Resnick says a swing out method right there. So look, you got one test there, a second test here, You can also pick this up as the break of this trend. You can break that trend, and that's the move up, right? So we'll see. We'll see. All right. I think we can move on. Now, just look real quick. The breadth of the markets. Let's look at that together. Breadth's been improving every day. We were all the way down to 36% of stocks were above their 50-day moving average. We're all the way up to 51%, and we're hitting right here, right? Kind of a double bottom, basically. This is just a breadth indicator. How many stocks are above their 50-day moving average? We're at 50%. So that improved. The overall market breadth has improved from this day, and this day is November 3rd. So from November 3rd, the breadth has improved. Now remember, market cap weight is what moves our markets. 7 stocks in our market really move the markets. I know. 493 don't matter much. It's kind of crazy. It's a narrow breadth that moves our markets, but that's what moves our markets. And that's just the way it is. Okay? It's the way it is. All right. Now, let's move on. We're going to move on to hourly charts. Now we're testing these lows right now. Okay? We're testing lows right now. And we'll get into some of these levels. All right? Get into some of these levels. Let me get my trusty stuff out here. Give you the hourlies. Alrighty. Let's start these hourlies. Alright. Now, let's look at this chart together. Now, let's take this off. This demand zone has now been broken, so I'd eliminate that now. Okay. Let's get a little zoomed in here. And the ES has been relatively stronger than the NASDAQ, okay? There's the anchor VWAP from the Friday's lows. Never been tested. The blue is anchored VWAP from the all-time highs. Okay. This is the month-to-date anchor VWAP. The white is from the Friday's lows, and the anchor VWAP for the week is right here where price is right now. So, want to gauge anchor VWAPs, right? Buyers, this represents buyers from these lows, right? They are in control. Okay. If you want to look at the beginning of the month, the anchored VWAP for the month's here. Price is here. Buyers are in control. If you want to look at for the week, it's getting tested now, right? That would show me who's in control for the week. It's green. That means buyers are in control. It's being tested right now. Okay. And the all-time highs, right? Sellers were in control from the all-time highs until this point right here. This candle broke that, and now we're holding back over it. Okay. That's the beauty of anchor VWAPs. They kind of just, you anchor them at any point in time you want and see who's in control or when they'll be in pain. Okay, that's the beauty of it. Okay, now what are we in? What are we in? I need a graphic for this. Ultimate balance. 68, let's call it 73, 75. This level here is ultimate balance. That means we're at the most traded price of the rolling month and the rolling week. Everybody has agreed, if they knew it or not, that 68.73, 68.75, let's call it 68.75 to make it easy, is the most fairest price of this market. Now, what happens from ultimate balance? What happens? Big moves. In big moves. Think about it, right? That's the beauty of having these on the chart, okay? I know that Everybody's agreeing upon this price. There's shorts, the most shorts and the most longs at this level. The farther you go away, longs are in trouble. The farther you go up, shorts are in trouble and you get a big move. Okay, so think of it as a coiling up spring that's getting ready to expand. Okay, getting ready to expand. Now, to drive home the point, because I know it should show up, let's just see. I'll do a profile from here, a volume profile. Let's see. Here it is. Right there. There's the most volume. And this is not even over the month. This is just from November 7th or something. But you can see the amount of volume, right? The amount of volume is right here. Just like where I told you ultimate balance is. Okay? Even, let's just take it back a little bit. It will show you anyway. Even, let's go from the beginning of the month. It will still show you. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's drag it back to the beginning of November, which is right there. Boom. You see it? Right there. Still the biggest spike is right here. That's why I have it on my chart, right? If the most volume has traded here, that's really important. Okay? Really important. And then it shows you the value area, right? This says that 70% of the trading has happened here since the beginning of the month. That's our value area. Okay, that's the value area. All right, now if I had to look at this profile and tell you what do I think happens next based on profile, I would say this profile has a bullish imbalance. Why would I say that? It's imbalanced to the bull side, to the upside, right? Because a completed profile looks like this, right? A completed profile looks like a belt. Let me just draw that better. This would be a completed profile. Everything in nature, whatever, has an equal distribution. Okay? Not this one, right? So if I had to bet, the most likely move is to the upside to make this an equal distribution. That's how you can look at profile. Right? We are testing the week to date anchor view up. We are testing this demand zone. And you can notice yesterday's lows, overnight lows. Well, this becomes the overnight low now. Okay? This could be a little bear trap. You go into here. Maybe we touch today the anchor view up from the lows, and I believe that should shoot us back up. Now, I'm not sure if that breaks us out, but it definitely probably will shoot us up to balance, to ultimate balance, and then that big move can happen. Right? Who really knows? I don't know. Okay, like I said, my bet would be probably to the upside. Okay, now, let's get out of here. Let's go to the NASDAQ. NASDAQ's a little different, right? Because the NASDAQ has been relatively weak. The NASDAQ has a gap above and gap below. We also have this trend line from the all-time highs, right? It has not been tested yet. Okay, but this is that inverse head and shoulders. Very bullish. Again, let's do an anchor VWAP check-in. Here's that anchored VWAP from the Friday's lows. Tested yesterday for the first time, got bought. Tested again in the overnight, got bought. It's testing it again. Now a little different. Notice the ES versus the NASDAQ. Our anchor VWAPs were underneath the anchor VWAP for all-time highs. We're underneath the month-to-date anchor VWAP. And we're testing the Friday lows anchor VWAP. Okay? But you can see the support here in the NASDAQ is being tested and tested and tested and tested. Does it break? I don't know. It could also be a trap. Okay? Could also be a trap. Now, what's different in the NASDAQ, right? Well, we have that gap. This is the gap underneath, and you have a gap above. And you're just oscillating in between the gaps. Okay? Now, whenever you're like this, one or two things can happen. You're in balance. You challenge one side, sellers take profits, longs come in, try to bust out, maybe they hit this trend line and we go back. And that's balance, right? And that's more coiling of that spring in ultimate balance, because we're in ultimate balance here as well. The level to talk about here is around 256s to 25650s. That's ultimate balance. We are going to make a big move. A big move is going to happen. You can see the coiling right here. Okay? Now, let's throw a little volume profile on there just to drive home this point. We'll just do it from this section here. It should show us what I'm telling you. There it is. There's the two big spikes in volume. That's why that they're the most traded price of the week and the month and the yesterday, right? Big spikes right now. Notice the difference in the profile just from this point in time. It's more balanced, right? It's equal distribution. So that's a very balanced profile. Remember, the ES has a bullish imbalance to it. Okay? And our value area is here. 70% of the trade is in this area. This is all value area, the highlighted area. Okay? Makes sense, right? 70% of the trade has been happening in that area. Okay? That's a good thing to know. Right? I think the market, if I had to think how this market works, bulls have the momentum, right? I think you might need to take this out right there to the gap. And this will tell me everything. I've said this yesterday. If you go into this gap and you get support and then you get a higher low, that's your launch point. Okay? That's your launch point. We'll see. We'll see. All right, let's move on. Move on to daily chart. I'm sorry, to market profile, bond profile, and we'll get you out of here. Let's do it. All right, you're gonna see. Obviously, this is more granular. Okay, but we're all about, let's see here. This is your market profile and volume profile here. Alrighty. Now, in the weekly profile, and this is automatically painted. Remember, I did the beginning of the month. We actually do have a little bit of a balanced look here as well. Makes sense because we're at ultimate balance, right? Macro version, it looks bullish and balanced, but this is a little more balanced. All right, so let's get right into it. This can't get any more easier today. This is a day where it's not like, oh man, this sucks. Nope. You got good opportunities today. Look at that. You have equal highs. You have a poor high in your overnight session. Lines right up with yesterday's highs. You can't make that up, folks. That's beautiful. That's a confluence high. That's a breakout point or a resistance point. Now, the other side is the same thing. You have yesterday's lows and the overnight lows. You have a two-day, well, this is why I look at market profile, right? Because I'm seeing the overnight session split out versus the real time. So it's just beautiful how it lays it out like this, because I can really easily see, oh, overnights and real time trading hours. Okay, great. What did we do? We just hit the week to date anchored VWAP. Remember, that shows from the beginning of the week who's in control. Okay. Now, if this is going to be balance area, this is a long. And the long might stink because we're here, right? It might just move back up to the ultimate balance again. Right? Now, we do have a poor low here. This is poor structure here. Remember I said everything needs to have a distribution? This profile right here is actually incomplete to the upside and to the downside. So that 68.30 becomes a level to watch. Okay. Now we know we have ultimate balance right in the middle here. Ultimate balance. Now that becomes the kind of the mean now. All right. That becomes the center of like a seesaw. All right. So this is what we're looking at today. Pretty easy, and I like it. I like it when it's more simple like this. Okay. It's simple, but let me tell you something. All right. Before I start the scenario, these ones are always like, we're in balance right now. We're already getting bought, right? You took it out, and now probably these shorts are taking profits, and we probably will go up higher here. But the thing is when you try to trade these, and it's like, all right, look, I think that's the low, and then we do one of these, and you just break that. Oh, I stopped out. All right, I think that's the low, right? That's where it gets tricky. And hey, we're in balance, and let's say the market's not that weak. It's real tricky to go, that's it. Now we're going back. It gets tricky. Okay. All right, let's get into scenarios. Let's get out of here. Okay. Here we are. We're at the point where you probably want to buy. Weekly dated anchored VWAP. You got a demand zone here. Okay. You got yesterday's lows. Let's talk about it. Okay. So what I'm going to look for is a push down. Let's break those overnight lows. Let's get some people trapped. Okay. Let's go into this demand. Then we recover, get a higher low, see how the internals look. If they don't look weak, you got a nice long play here, and this should fuel it. Okay. Let's call it 68.63 is the overnight VPOC. You just want to break through that and hold it. And then you're going to move to ultimate balance. That's your 68.75s. And then you probably give you a little trouble here. Challenge that 68.92s, which should be a breakout level. Or it could just be the resistance. So if you do this, boom, and you hold it, maybe we go up to last week's highs. And we start to break out. Don't know. Could always get resistance and fall back. Okay. Now, could you get deeper? Sure. You can get one of these, break this poor low, 68.31s, and everybody might be like, oh my God, and do one of these. Whoop. And if the market's not that weak, again, you can make yourself up to ultimate balance. Now, you do have the week-to-date anchor VWAP down here that has not been tested in a little bit. Okay, that was support over here. We'll have to see. We still have a gap below us as well. That's the longs. All right, not much to talk about there. Now, on the opposite, all right, this is how you have to think about this. What's the probability, because I looked at a lot of charts and stocks, and they're in balance as well, that we're just going to all out sell unless there's a catalyst? It's not very likely. Not here, not down here. Okay? So, what I would say is if I'm going to look short, all right, and I expect this market to move up, so it could do this, move up, move up. Now, you might get something here, but I wouldn't be a fan of it, all right? I'd wait for this to hold, come up. This is what I would wait for if we're really going to stay in balance. Now, if, let's say, we're moving up like this and the market internals are showing me that, okay, we're not that strong, really. It's just balance, right? And you break the 68.93s, but then you go and say a wick, and then you make that lower high, you can get a nice reversion to the back to the ultimate balance, the 68.75s. That could be a nice one. Now, do you get from a low to a high and from a high to a low in the same day? Maybe. And you can go back and test this side. That's it. That's all I'm interested in. I'm telling you right now. All right. The only thing else, no, you know what? I'm not. Because even let's say we break these lows and we're holding, we're still in the demand zone. I don't like shorting in demand. Okay, so that's it. Moving on. That's it. Look at that. That's a better balance, and that's a beautiful bell curve. Remember I talked about that. Remember I talked about that. Look at that bell curve. That is balance, folks. Look at that. That's showing you balance in your NASDAQ futures. Okay? Now, do I need that to tell me that? No. I could tell right here. Right? I don't need it. It's just easy on the eyes. That's all. Easy on the eyes. And what is it giving us? A solid balance low. Because we just have all this area. Okay? Thicken that up a little bit. That's our balance lows. From the 255s all the way down to 254 20 somethings. Okay? That's our balance lows. Now look, we could not break yesterday's lows yet. We're in demand. We have another demand below us. We have the gap. The gap. Still here. This is your gap. This is the gap. That's your unfilled gap up below. Here's your unfilled gap above. Remember, we're in between two gaps. Okay? This looks like it wants to get broken. This just looks like it's going to be broken. Okay? Now, you have a poor low. You see that like flattish top? That's susceptible to getting broken. Okay? Now, we don't have that equal high and overnight high like we did in the ES. That's fine. That's fine. This makes it more, and you have single prints from the open. So this is not going to act as much resistance if the market gets strong and breaks this level. We'll probably test the highs. Okay? So, down here, we know we have ultimate balance in the middle. It can act as the middle of the seesaw. We have yesterday's highs. Now I'm going to put this like this. Okay? That's all we care about. All right? I mean, we can look at the price action. Okay? That doesn't tell us much. Actually, I have a double top here a little bit. Okay? It's for my boy documents there. That M stands for murder a little bit. All right? I know that's a little drastic, but that's what I was taught. Now, let's look at this together. All right? I believe this is going to get broken. All right? As we probably as I'm speaking. So we're going to just go right into scenarios here. Let's get it out of the way. All right, we're going to start with the bull side. Okay, this is very susceptible to get broke. All right, at 25488s. All right, I think we're going to break it. So let's see what I like to see. Let's break that. Let's break it. Let's go into the gap a tiny bit. Then you have this support level around the 25420s around. If this holds, let's say we do this and then we recover in the gap and we do a higher low. That is a long. And you probably will get some toughness inside ultimate balance. You don't usually rip through it. But I believe if you hold on to it, you're going to eventually move up to break the overnight highs, which has that poor high, right? 25721s will bust up through the single prints of yesterday and test yesterday's highs at 25780s. Can you go higher? I don't know. Maybe you touch this gap almost at 259s. I don't know. That would be a breakout. Okay? I don't know. I really don't. Okay? Now, if you want to get a little more bear trappy, you go down into that gap, touch this demand, and get a whoop, higher low. You're going to at least go back to ultimate balance and maybe test the overnight highs. That's the longs. Okay, that's all I'm interested in. Short side. Now, it might look, right, if you're a price action trader, like, ooh, I want to short this, right? Now again, you can make money on that. I'm not saying that. But you're shorting where everybody else most likely will take profits. Okay, we'll see. We just broke that low, actually, what I was just saying. We just did it. So here we go. Boom, boom, boom. As I'm speaking, this is what expected. You saw this poor low was forming, and now we just broke it, right? So now we just breached the real-time trading hours lows yesterday, right? It's time that we're thinning out, right? I would think we start to move back up here, but I don't know, right? It never goes out exactly the way you think. So as a short, what I want to see, a push down, push up, fine. You could get something in here, but you're imbalanced, so I don't expect much. So you're going to go up, up, up. Like I said, I would wait for this to break, hit yesterday's highs, and we need to see some type of trap here where you get a nice wick, lower high, where these longs say, all right, I'm taking my profits. You get a lower high, and you revert back to the ultimate balance. That's a decent trade. Do you go through ultimate balance and back to the lows? I don't know. I think a catalyst would have to happen. Now, this is not a great short for me. Let's say if we're down here and you're in the gap. Now, I know there's a void. There's a void here, but there's also this big level here. Run 253s. And you have demand zone as well. I just think people will buy the hell out of this down here. I'm not excited for shorts below this area. So that's all. That's all for today. Okay, that's it. Let's give me a big thumbs up if you enjoyed that content in my analysis. All right, I do this every day, so help out the channel. All right. Now, hopefully, you join me every morning as I give you the market story, the market news. Let me be your coffee. Let me be your tea. Let me be your podcast, because I give you exactly why the market's doing what it's doing. Right. In the past, I would be looking at this when I started trading. Oh, I want to short this. Not knowing balance rules, not knowing usually what you do, not knowing that that's probably the worst location you can short. Now, again, if we open up super weak, we'll see. I don't know. Okay? Now, if you want the in-depth coverage, right? You're going to sign up for my Discord, Confluence Trading. Go to the YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Use me as your indicator. Okay? The beauty of listening to me live, okay, is because I give you the story. I'm not giving you the next 2 minutes, the next 1 minute. I'm giving you the story of the market. Yes, there's some times where I can give you the next minute or two, okay? But I'm saying overall, when I'm speaking about the market, look at it as, man, Steve just said that most likely the lows are in, or most likely we don't have much more room to the downside. Use that as you will. I'm pretty accurate, okay? That's why I'm saying don't have to trade like me, but use me as an indicator, all right? I've seen this 5 or so more years of looking at internals, and price action fools everybody. That's what I'm saying. I talk about the story because price action, if you stare at a little time frame, will make you believe we're going to fall more or make you believe we're going to go up more. But there's a story, there's a profile, there's internals that usually probability tell us another thing of what overall should happen. Okay, so come join me live and see it. I'm going to sit here, you're going to hear me live, and I'm going to be like, listen, this is generally what happens now. Like yesterday, I was in there with the ticks saying, hey, these ticks, this is what usually happens. And boom, it happens. Right? So you can't outperform in internals, and you can't outperform what I've seen over and over and over and over and over again. It just doesn't happen. Okay? So I really think it's your benefit to just listen or watch me and go, oh my God, like he's like nailing this market, right? So, like I said, I'm a better than any indicator, all right, for the story, all right? Not for a scalp for 1 minute or 30 seconds, for this story, okay? So come join, all right? Now, everybody, have a great day. Remember, no trade is a trade. Stay green, and hopefully, not only your capital, your mental capital is very important. Okay? Mental capital is very important. If you do not have mental capital, you're not going to take your A setup. It's just how it works. Okay? When you deviate from a certain process, and I have deviated slightly, that I made money. See, here's the thing. I deviated from my process and made money last week. I deviated. And I knew because I deviated that I could be susceptible to having a couple of losing trades, and I did. Okay? There's a process there for a reason, and the process was limiting my ability to get I wasn't getting my setups. And don't get me wrong, they weren't like the dumbest trades ever, but they weren't part of my process, right? So if you take trades that you're not comfortable with and you make money, oh, that's the worst thing. You get rewarded for doing something you probably shouldn't be doing. So I had to reset myself yesterday and just narrated the story with everybody live and said, oh, poor low in the NASDAQ, ticks are holding red constantly. I'm on a short here, break these lows, took the scalp, done. Whatever, made the 450 or close to $500. I think it was 475 or something like whatever it was. And I was done. After narrating that whole story, I was like, that was my best opportunity yesterday. So, gonna do it again today. So come join me. I'm gonna be live. All right. Everybody have a great day. If I don't see you in my Discord, I'll see you.